86-year-old Gordon Bonner says he is lost in a hinterland of despair and desolation. It's 9 months since Muriel, his wife of 63 years, died from COVID-19. He was called to her bedside for the final moments.
And I sat for the next hour and watched Muriel drown in her own body fluids. It's the most harrowing experience of my life, and it will haunt me. And I'll tell you why. Such was her fight for oxygen that she was sucking at the air and I can still see her face now, and her lips formed a perfect circle as if she was sucking through a straw.
A haunting account of loss and grief, emotions that have touched families across the country. Britain Tuesday became the first European country to report 100,000 coronavirus deaths. 25,000 of those have occurred in the past 3 weeks. It now has the highest coronavirus death rate per capita in the world. Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Wednesday he shared the nation's grief.
I and the government take full responsibility for all the actions we've taken during this pandemic to fight this disease. And yes, Mr. Speaker, there will indeed be a time when we must learn the lessons of what has happened.
Johnson announced an extension of school closures and the enforced quarantine of travellers arriving from high-risk countries. Critics say he's done too little, too late.
The Prime Minister was slow into the first lockdown last March. He was slow in getting protective equipment to the front line, slow to protect our care homes, slow on testing and tracing, slow into the second lockdown in the autumn, slow to change the Christmas mixing rules, slow again into this third lockdown.
Many scientists blame underinvestment in the National Health Service.
We suffered from not having an adequate public health infrastructure in this country. We didn't get test, trace and isolate right, and that's still a big challenge for this country. So keeping a lid on infections by effective testing, tracing, and then encouraging people to isolate is really important. And we didn't get border control right.
While Britain leads Europe in coronavirus deaths, it is way ahead in its vaccination programme. Close to 7 million people have received their first vaccine doses.
And it should mean that come March time, we're in a much stronger position in terms of being able to review the current lockdown restrictions.
But there are growing concerns of a vaccine shortage. Drug firms AstraZeneca and Pfizer warned the European Union this week of delays as production systems are scaled up to meet demand. The EU has threatened to block exports of vaccines produced in Europe. Meanwhile, the British government says the public should be prepared for further bad news.
Unfortunately, we're going to see quite a lot more deaths over the next few weeks before the effects of the vaccines begin to be felt.
So, tragically, thousands more families will have to endure the grief of losing loved ones before their time. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.